If I was ever asked what my favorite type of games are, my response would be a game with a strong narrative that immerses me in an adventure. Well, it just so happens there are a collection of visual novels that are all about this, and they make up the Science Adventure series. Once totally unknown, the series is thankfully gaining popularity in the West, which is why I'm happy to see one of my favorite entries in the series release onto PC. I'm Jacob Kavanagh, and this is Noisy Pixels review for Chaos Child. Chaos Child tells the story of Takeru Miyashiro, an imaginative boy who'd like to be accepted by his peers as normal, but would also like to stand out. As president of his high school's newspaper club, he ends up stumbling upon a string of horrifying murders happening around the city that seem to have connections to a similar string of disturbing murders that occurred 6 years ago. The story then follows Takeru and his friends as they attempt to solve the mystery and maybe even stop the murderer before they strike again. Gameplay in Chaos Child is fairly limited and hands-off, but there are a few interactive moments where the player can change the direction. First off, the game has a mechanic known as the delusion trigger, where players can choose to enter Takeru's delusions with a positive or negative outcome. However, it's also acceptable for the player to not choose any and just go along with the ride. These delusions trigger a fantasized version of what could happen. Loosely. These events are usually quite comical, depending on the situation, which is a nice break from the serious tone in some parts of the game. And once the common route is completed, these choices hold more meaning as they can start to influence the outcome of the story. There's also the mapping trigger, where players can act as a detective and answer questions about the crime, collect notes, check out crime scene data, potentially deduce the killer's next actions. You know, typical detective stuff. It's an extremely satisfying feature, as it makes you feel like you're the one making these breakthroughs that could potentially blow this case wide open. Takeru wasn't my favorite main protagonist at first, but this is partially due to the game's slow start, which takes its time in setting up character interactions and easing you into the story. I appreciated this in the end because there is a lot to take in over the 20 hours it takes to even get to the game's first ending. The other 6 endings alone add another 30 hours to the game? But with such a strong foundation, I was completely on board over the entire adventure, and felt each ending offered a substantial amount of depth to the overall story, and I'd seriously recommend going through all of them. You'll be duly rewarded. Chaos Child doesn't come entirely without flaws, as I did run into a couple of typos here and there, and some partially untranslated achievements. There's also a moment in the game that requires you to read an untranslated map to progress in a particular route, which feels like it probably should have been fixed. However, as for flaws, that's it. Chaos Child manages to tell one of the best stories I've ever experienced. Across the board, the cast of characters are all splendid, the writing is fitting to immerse you into this wonderful world and take you on a proper adventure. And the sound design is impeccable. It contains one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. This game is an absolute masterpiece and a must-play for all visual novel fans and all mystery fans out there to enjoy. Noisy Pixel is giving Chaos Child a 9.8 out of 10. Thank you all so much for watching. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to deliver news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe and ring that little bell to stay up to date on all of our future content. And let me know in the comments what your favorite entry in the Science Adventure series is. And tell me why it's Chaos Child. Or help me try and convince other people to play Chaos Child because it is a masterpiece and you should all play it. Wait, isn't the review over now?